Welcome to this episode of the Voices of the Learning Network podcast. I'm your host today, Bill Bannum, and today we are joined by Linnéa Chogren, Swedish learning strategist, founder of Linnéa Learning, and one of the most thoughtful voices in the global conversation about modern learning ecosystems. Hey, Linnéa, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Before we go any further, I think I absolutely murdered the pronunciation there of your name. So why don't you give it to our listeners so that they know the correct version?
I think it was fine, but it's Linnéa Sjögren. So Swedish, hard to pronounce in English. That's fine. You can butcher it. It's okay.
Thank you. Pronunciation is not my thing. I often fail at this, so thank you. Linnéa. Okay. All right, we got it. Let's continue through. So you work with organizations navigating rapid tech change, of course. What are some of the most common misconceptions that leaders have about AI's role in learning, and how should L&D be reframing that?
Right. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions, right, is that AI will automatically create value if we just add it to things. So if we add AI to this system or this approach, or we just give everyone AI, it will automatically create value. But it's a tool. And just like any tool in the world, right, it's only as good as the person using it. So a hammer is neither good or bad generally, right? It's a hammer. You're either good at using it or you're not. So if we want to have people using AI and creating value, we need not just to say, yes, we want AI, but we want to talk about, well, how do we want to use AI? For what and what outcomes do we expect if we use AI here? Because AI is capable of amazing things, but it's also amazing at creating the wrong things. You know, things that aren't good enough, things that are not just right for the target audience, things that are incorrect. It's just that it does it so quickly that, you know, we think it's amazing. But if we look closer, it's not necessarily amazing. I sometimes think, you know, there used to be, people had it on T-shirts and postcards and things. Coffee, do stupid things faster with more energy. I don't know if you remember that, but I think we could just replace coffee with AI and sort of achieve the same effect, right? It's like, it's not necessarily good. But what we're seeing, right, is that consistently, when it's a combination of a human competently using AI, it's both better than just a human and better than just an AI. So we need to figure out, how do we become the humans that are competent at using AI? So what we as L&D need to do, we need to talk about it as a tool. You know, not evangelist, but neither like doomsday prophet, right? It's very like detached almost. This is a tool. This is the skills you need to use it. And the other thing I think, we as L&D, this sort of pushes us to get closer to learning in the flow of work. Because it's not like people aren't learning AI, right, or using AI. They are, whether they're allowed to or not. Some aren't, of course, but a lot of people are. So we need to insert ourselves wherever this is already happening, instead of creating sort of on the side e-learnings that people might or might not take. So we need to figure out, like, where is this already happening and how do we insert ourselves there, creating this understanding and making sure it actually leads to value and not just lots of rapidly created things.
In terms of managing the AI and recognizing that garbage in, garbage out is the famous saying, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How's that changing with the increased use of agentic AI? Because, yeah, okay, you may set some parameters around that, but then the point is it can run with a lot of tasks. It can talk to other agentic AIs. So there's less human input. There's less human control, perhaps. How does that change things?
I mean, the agentic AI helps in a way, right? Because it has a framework already. It might exclude things or understand some things. But first of all, it's still AI and it can be corrupted by who's using it. The longer you converse with an AI, the more it tends to shift from however it was originally created, even if it's an agent. Because it wants to please you. And so you have to remember that all the time. But also, I mean, I think as long as we're using it for the right things, I think it's amazing. It's just that we keep using it for the wrong things. So an agentic AI, yes, for the right things. I think that helps us get better output, quicker, more factual, more correct, work around a lot of the things that bad personal AI prompting leads to. But it's not a fail-safe, it's not solving everything. We still need some basic understanding of how to communicate with AI, what AI output is, etc.
On a strategic level, whether inside an organization or as a vendor, how does L&D stay relevant, financed, and positioned as a true business partner?
All right, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think we really need to be a business partner. But to do that, we first and foremost have to decide that that is who we're going to be. And then we have to make that a reality. We can't wait for permission to be a business partner. We can't wait for someone else to tell us that we're a business partner. We have to start acting like a business partner, whether anyone asked for it or not. And it all starts with focusing on, okay, so how can we create real business value? Like that has to be sort of our lens, not how do we create courses, not how do we, respond to asks, not how do we, take in information, but how do we create business value? And we usually don't have to figure this out ourselves, right? There are already so many things in an organization, right? We already have the goals and the values and the plans and the KPIs, etc. So we can just start by looking at those and say, okay, can we at all, but if so, how can we create a difference when it comes to these things that are the most important things for our organization? And then once we figure that out, we offer to do that and also make sure that we can prove that if it helped, we can say that that's because we did this thing, because that's part of the relevant and financed, especially financed, right, is you have to sort of back it up. I create a value. And there's an emotional aspect of this where people need to feel like they're being supported, yes, but there's also a data aspect of this, which is we have to show that we create a value. So once we decide this is our role, it's kind of like becoming a lobbyist. You have to take initiatives, build relationships, offer to help. So let's do a short example. Say your company has a department for product development, very common. So if we want to be their strategic partner, their business partner, that means in early stages of creating or updating a product, right, we would be involved. Thinking about, okay, what skills will this require and from who? And then we can work long term, long before there even is a finished product. We can start developing skills and readiness for the product. So maybe we need, say we're creating a product that is about solving environmental issues. It's better for the environment than competitors. Okay, well, before we even know the finished product, we could start making sure that all the employees that are going to be in sales have the knowledge around, environmental law, etc., that they need to motivate these things. But also create a mental readiness to sort of frame it through environmental sustainability rather than just pricing or whatever we used to sell thinking about. So
there we go. That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. You often emphasize learning, not training, as a driver of organizational development. But what does that look like in practice, and how do you help organizations make that shift?
Right. So I think this is another example of how you act as a strategic business partner. We already had two sort of examples, right? The AI training in the flow of work, and then the last one about the product development, right? So the problem is that creating a course, it's a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people, right? So the first part of this in practice is to combat the knee-jerk reaction. And then instead look at the entire toolbox of things we could do and things we can use and choose the right one for the business impact we want to create. So combining things, transfer tools, supporting learning and flow of work, courses, all of it, but like an ecosystem. So if someone comes to me, right, and they have a skill or knowledge related issue, I will look at that ecosystem. So not just what training is there, but where can we find this information? Would anyone notice if we did this wrong, and how would they notice that? What consequences would that have? Not just for the organization or the department, but for the individual. How's the psychological safety overall? How are managers supporting day-to-day learning? And after figuring all of those things out, I might end up building training, but I might also help develop, a more intuitive way to navigate a job aid or a part of an intranet. I might be, instead of training the original target audience, I might be training managers in supporting reflection and peer learning or creating more psychological safety. So that's sort of the shift. I think that's what it looks like in practice.
Okay, so let's follow up to that then. What signals or indicators show that an organization is ready to adopt a learning ecosystem approach rather than traditional training delivery?
Right. So I think, first of all, I'm not sure we should wait for them to be ready, just because they might not be, and they might, people are rarely ready when they need to be. They have to do it because the pain point, the cost of not doing it is too high, rather than they're ready. But if you want to see that you're moving in the right direction, I would look for, say, from the learning department, I would look for showing a consultative approach, building relationships, offering to do more things than just build courses, talking about learning and skills in different scenarios and in different environments, meetings, etc. And from the business, I think it's a lot about how they talk about and think about skills and when they approach you. So the earlier in a process they approach you, the more readiness there is.
Very succinct. I like that. Thank you very much. Community, networks, and collective intelligence. Let's talk about that now. You lead networks in Sweden and help run the global learning and development community. What are you seeing across global L&D communities that gives you hope? And what should practitioners be learning from each other right now?
This is not a new thing, but I think always, as long as I've been part of sort of L&D communities, there's always been a lot of generosity. Like, we're willing to help each other, we're willing to share things with each other, and that gives me a lot of hope for humanity in general and definitely for L&D, and we can and need to do even more of that, I think, because it's not reasonable that every one of us should stay up to date on everything. So we need to build sort of a collective intelligence, I think, where we share things that we find, we try, things that work, things that don't. And hopefully, if we start transitioning into being a more strategic function, I think we need to start sharing how we're doing that. And not just like the skills and the how-tos, but like the success stories, the horror stories, giving each other sort of mental and emotional support for dealing with the change, the sort of vulnerability fatigue that comes with trying to act differently without having been told to do so. Just being there for each other. I think that's what needs to happen as well, because L&D can be such a lonely place inside of your organization, and sometimes the belonging just has to come from the outside.
Okay, I like that. We are wrapping up with giving a bit of love to each other. Yes. I like that. One last question for you today, Linnéa, before we do finish, and that is, how can folks learn more about you? How can they connect with you? Is that LinkedIn? Is that email? Is that Instagram? Where are the best places?
Okay, yeah. So LinkedIn is probably the quickest and easiest way to find me. I do have a website. You can email me. I also have a YouTube channel that has videos in both English and Swedish, all around sort of things that you might need to know if you're working in L&D, things that might be helpful.
Excellent. That just leaves me to say for today, thank you very much for your time and joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.